Good morning, everyone. This is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are diving right into the New Republic. This article is from about a week ago because summer gets busy, and it's talking about Hunter Biden. It's from the New Republic, and the title is Republicans Have So Little Hunter Biden Evidence, They Shared His Nudes Instead. FYI, the very idea that we have a colloquial term for collection of sexually explicit nude photographs of yourself that you share with people is weird. That's not normal. His nudes, her nudes, their nudes, my nudes, whatever. Call me a prude. I think that's weird. Just throwing that out there. Anyway. Also, by the way, speaking of headline analysis, I think it's pretty delightful. The way this headline is framed, if this is all that you read, if you took it at face value, what you're seeing is a picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene at a committee hearing looking smug, and you're seeing that the Republicans are basically trying to showboat. They're basically saying, we don't have anything of substance, so we're going to flash around some unrelated, embarrassing pictures. Except if you go into the body of the article, you discover that the point Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to show is Hunter Biden committing sex crimes, and by that I mean illegally paying and trafficking prostitutes. Not okay. And then using the money spent on the prostitutes as a tax write-off. Super double plus, not okay. In other words, his nude photographs were part of a presentation explaining evidence of actual wrongdoing. Now, you can't convict anyone in a congressional hearing. That wasn't the point. The point was to raise the profile and get a chance to try and break through the media blockade to show people that there is evidence of Hunter Biden wrongdoing that needs to be adjudicated in court. The Republicans are trying, at the time of this writing, to stop the plea deal that had been arranged, the sweetheart plea deal, which is probably worth a video on its own, by pointing out that you cannot just sweep all of this under the rug. You're going to make a splash to try and show that. Okay, you're going to be salacious. That's kind of Marjorie Taylor Greene's style. Not mine, hers, fine. Political operation, go for it. They are taking the presentation of Marjorie Taylor Greene and intentionally twisting it and presenting it factually incorrect. That is really a lie. And it's not the last lie of this article. It's the first lie. But here comes the second, ironically, right in the opening paragraph. Republicans have yet to produce any evidence of actual wrongdoing by Hunter Biden, so they let Marjorie Taylor Greene wave his nude photos around Wednesday during a House Oversight Committee hearing on his taxes. They're making the allegation that there is no evidence of Hunter Biden's wrongdoing. If you believe that, you're either a willing dupe or you're in a coma. There's really not much of a third option there. Here's why. Hunter Biden's laptop, the infamous laptop, it was validated by the FBI months before the election, 2020 election. In other words, the FBI has said, yep, this is legit. So if you trust the FBI, which most people on the left do for some reason, if you trust the FBI, then anything on the laptop is at least credible and worthy of examination. Well, what do we find on there? Photographic and videographic evidence of hundreds of drug, sex, and tax crimes. I mean that when you hire a prostitute and you traffic that prostitute across state borders, across country borders for your own personal use, and then you take the expenses of that and file it as a tax deduction, and you take video of yourself consuming illegal drugs that you must have purchased illegally and perhaps transported yourself, which means that you are potentially guilty of drug trafficking, drug consumption, drug possession, sex crimes, sex trafficking, prostitution, solicitation of prostitution, etc., and tax evasion and fraud and all sorts of other things. This is evidence of actual wrongdoing. It's not the only evidence out there, but it's there. So if you're listening to someone who basically says, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and you believe them, that's on you. You are willingly being lied to. You are agreeing that your job is to listen to the lies and say, yeah, that sounds about right. The interesting thing is, if you look at Reddit and you look at the comments, the top comments on Reddit are basically all talking about how the Republicans also do sex crimes. I guess that makes everything okay. I guess that makes them hypocrites, and therefore we don't have to listen to any allegations against Hunter Biden. It's a moral relativistic gray world. Now I want to talk a little bit about the plea deal before we close for today. House Republicans have for months accused the Bidens of corruption and other forms of wrongdoing, although they have yet to produce any actual evidence. They've recently seized on Hunter Biden's plea deal on his taxes, which will allow him to avoid jail time. But again, during that House hearing, Republicans and their whistleblower witnesses failed to show any meaningful evidence of said corruption. We don't have time to get into the whole saga today. There's a lot of nonsense going on with Hunter and Joe Biden, and it's all brewing. It's all in process right now. So we'll see where it goes. And I'll give you an example. This was published a week ago. I was pretty busy personally this last week, and so I didn't get a chance to discuss it, but I wanted to touch on it. I wanted it to be part of our conversation. And it's interesting that I was returning to it today because just yesterday, Hunter Biden's mentioned plea deal blew up and the whole thing fell apart. And there's some reasons for that. And so I'm going to I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all the ins and outs, but we're just going to dabble our toe a little bit into the plea deal, okay? Because it's legalistic wrangling. Here's basically what they said. They set up a plea deal and they set up what's called a pretrial diversion. A pretrial diversion program is often used, for instance, a first-time youth offender, rather than putting them into prison or juvenile detention, they might divert them into a community service program or something like a boot camp, something to try and snap them out of their poor behavior. You're trying to divert them from the trap that so often happens where once you enter the criminal justice system and you have a criminal record, you then have a hard time making a legitimate living, which encourages you to pursue illegitimate ways of living, which means that you commit more crimes and go back to prison. It's a terrible tragedy, and it's a whirlpool that captures many people's lives. So pretrial diversion programs are often designed for first-time offenders in an effort to say, before you become a hardened criminal, let's try and snap you out of this and literally divert you. That's what that's for. Here's why that becomes relevant. Hunter Biden lied on the background check form when he purchased a weapon, at least once. And one of the questions on there is, are you addicted to the use of illegal substances? Well, Hunter Biden's laptop shows us, yeah, he uses a lot of illegal substances. And he did at the time in which he signed the form and checked no, because they won't give you a gun if you check yes. However, checking no on that form is a felony in and of itself. Almost like that's evidence of actual wrongdoing. Further, the weapon that he purchased was eventually located in the dumpster behind a school. Regardless of whether or not he broke the law purchasing the gun, it's also pretty clear that he did not handle it properly or dispose of it properly, or someone else to put it. There's drama there. Gun crimes are a problem. You have tax crimes, because Hunter Biden had a bunch of illicit income that he couldn't run through normal channels because of the way he was being paid. And so for a lot of it, particularly stuff with Burisma, he just didn't claim it. Well, if you don't claim income on your taxes, that's called tax evasion. And if that comes up and grabs you, particularly if it's for sizable amounts, which his was, that leads to jail time. Those are felonies also. This is a problem. Hunter Biden has a problem. There's enough evidence of his actual wrongdoing that he has to address it in some way. And true to form for the sneaky institutional, we protect our own bubble of the media ecosystem, the legal system, and the three-letter agencies controlled by the leftists that permeate permanent administrative managerial class within the federal government, came up with a plan. They said, shoot, there's enough evidence of actual wrongdoing that we really need to try and get Hunter Biden in the clear. Because if Hunter Biden gets stuck, it's a real short leap from Hunter to Joe. And that's a big problem for the Democrats that want to win the re-election in 2024. If the sitting president gets impeached for corrupt dealings, that makes it real hard for the Democrats to win in 2024. So they want to avoid that. Okay. So how do we avoid that? We take the gun charge and we run it through a framework of a pretrial diversion. And then we take the felony tax crimes and we lower those down to misdemeanors. And we say, you paid it, that's fine, whatever. We're going to just kind of scrub that and say, you're going to pay some fees and penalties and probably do some community service, but no jail time or anything. But you're going to plead guilty to these crimes. And the interesting thing is, in the pretrial diversion, there's language, and this is where it gets a little legal wrangling, so I don't want to get too down in the weeds because I'm not a lawyer. Basically, they set it up to where the plea deal for the tax crimes looked like, hey, listen, this is white collar crime. We're gonna just deal with this, okay? But then in the pretrial diversion on the gun crime, the language of it actually said, by pleading guilty to, by going through this process, assuming that Hunter Biden completes his parole and doesn't get in any further trouble, probation, whatever the word is, Hunter Biden gains immunity for all related crimes that may come up related to the scope of the plea dealing. In other words, they basically tried to sneak a pardon through the back door. A pardon not from Joe Biden, his father, a pardon through the DOJ, where basically it's a legal structure that if it got signed off on it, not only would Hunter Biden skate on the charges that were included and publicly discussed, but also it would provide a certain degree of shielding and immunity for Hunter Biden for crimes not yet discussed. Most importantly, Foreign Agent Registration Act, FARA. And here's why this is a problem. It is in federal law that if you are a U.S. citizen and you are working on behalf of a foreign government at their benefit and under their direction, you have to register with the federal government as a foreign agent. The world is totally happy if you do business with foreign companies, even if you advocate for foreign entities on U.S. soil. It's part of good trade, that's totally fine. But people need to know visibly, especially if you're dealing with the federal government, that you are not advocating American interests, you're advocating the interests of a foreign government or a foreign business. When Hunter Biden signed on to Burisma, he became a foreign agent. He did not register as a foreign agent, which is in itself a serious felony, on top of, what was that? Oh yeah, all the evidence of the other actual wrongdoing. That's the plea deal in a nutshell. And as soon as, in order for these plea deals to be enforced, you have to get a judge to sign off on them. And so just yesterday, the judge for this case smelled of something a little fishy, and to her credit, dug in and discovered that basically they were trying to provide a degree of immunity to potential FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, claims that might still come to light, that hadn't yet formalized into any specific charges. And she said, whoa, that's out of scope for this. Like, I can't sign off on that. You can narrow the plea deal to be just tax and gun, and then I'll sign off on it. And Hunter Biden's lawyers basically blew up with that and said, no, this needs to include everything, blah, 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 blah. And so Hunter Biden didn't plead guilty. He pled not guilty. In other words, he didn't take the plea deal. He is now going to trial. Now, you can always negotiate another plea deal. All of these things, everything's negotiable. So they may work something out. But it is notable that a week ago, the New Republic is saying, there's no evidence of any actual wrongdoing. And a week later, a federal judge says, there's enough evidence of wrongdoing here that I can't give you this plea deal the way that it's structured. That's the funny old world we live in today. I appreciate your time. Good luck out there.